It wouldn't be the 2023 Guardians season if a rookie like Gavin Williams made team history and Major League history, and the Guardians lost in sad fashion. And we're going to spend most of today talking about a waiver claim in August, just so everybody wanted to be with this team. But stick with us today, Guardians fans. I think we can at least help you make yourself feel a little bit better despite the loss.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. We want to thank you for coming on. We know it is rough right now to be a Guardians fan, but we have a lot of fun things to talk about. There's a lot of interesting things happening, even if the performances were a little bit disappointing tonight outside of Gavin Williams. Should we just start there with the history that was made? I didn't even realize this until I got on with you.
Well, I saw Zach Meisel's tweet, the tweet about he was the first rookie pitcher in baseball history to strike out 12 batters and allow one hit. And he is the first Guardians rookie to strike out 12 batters in his rookie season in a game. So that's pretty good. I mean, Gavin Williams, it's funny. Maybe everybody can thank us for this, right? Last night, you and I were having a discussion towards the end of the podcast on yesterday's episode. And then off air, we had more discussions around Gavin Williams. And we planned to talk about him today after a start, just saying like, okay, here's what we like. Here's what we don't like. Here's our concerns. What do we need to see the rest of the year? Who can he be for this team? And we kind of voiced those, and we're like, okay, there are some things that if they come together here should be pretty fascinating. But we had concerns long-term about. Tonight, he alleviated a lot of those concerns. He showed a lot of the things that he can do against a good lineup. I mean, I don't know how good the Red Sox pitching is this year, truthfully, but I know they've had a lot of injuries too, but the Toronto Blue Jays offense is really good this year. And
it is a little beat up right now, though.
They are. I mean, Guerrero's having a bit of a down year. Springer has been in a slump.
Bichette is on the
counting
DL.
on. That's true. So there is that. But overall, they're a decent lineup with some good hitters, and Gavin dominated them. He went out there and did a good job. They beat up on the Red Sox over the weekend. That was my point. But about as good performance as you're going to get. I mean, of course, the Guardians, like I said, would lose when one of their pitchers strikes out 12 in 7 innings and he walks one and he gives up one hit to the son of a Hall of Famer and hits one batter. You just saw that coming, right? Like that is the Guardians 2023 season in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's watching this game unfold and at points where, like I'm texting you as it's happening, it's it took them 4 or 5 innings to get a hit.
5, yeah. Brian Rocchio.
Brian Rocchio, and then
2 for 4 tonight.
Yeah, and we can jump ahead to 9th. My blood boiled in the 9th. He battled. It didn't turn out, but he battled. Oscar at least advanced those base runners. Cole Calhoun, you got a guy who's struggling with his command. Let's swing at the first pitch. He is such a waste for this roster. A waste of at bats. Still playing him at first. Call up Mike Caprice. Call up Daniel Schneemann, call up anyone. There's no point to Calhoun on this roster. I don't understand. And it's dumb, and he is not good. And yes, he made that great catch. I agree. He made a great catch and left. But maybe if you had someone who was like a little more fleet of foot out there, they would have not had to dive at the ball because they would have gotten there on time. So is it a great catch, or is it just a great catch because his range is so small anymore?
I don't know. He was a Gold Glover at one time, for what that's worth, and those have always been subjective. Yeah, his at bats weren't good tonight. I agree. I said this yesterday. I don't really like the idea of Cole Calhoun taking at bats for anybody right now, but I also do recognize that I don't know how good of an idea it is for Mike Caprice or anybody. Like you said, Daniel Schneemann's one thing. I guess he can play the infield. You don't have a first baseman though. Like David Fry is going on the IL tomorrow. That's gonna probably go in concert with the Ramon Laureano move, which we'll talk about next segment. Everyone's gonna want to know about that, I'm sure, because the Guardians are still adding interesting players. That's fun. And again, I'm gonna address it again because I saw it in the comments again. The reason Cole Calhoun is here is because he was on the Dodgers minor league roster. He wasn't on a 40-man roster. Anybody on a minor league roster that's not on the 40-man roster can be traded between teams 100 times if they want at this point. That's the only way trades can be made. The waiver trade deadline is gone. It's no more. The only way you can acquire players is if they are waived, like Ramon Laureano, or if you trade from them from another minor league team, minor league system. There's no trading of major league players at this point. There's waivers and there's minor league deals. I know that keeps getting brought up in the comments. I don't know if Mike Caprice is, would it hurt his development to come up? And I don't know, like I said, you got to make a decision on him this offseason anyway.
For a guy, yeah, and if you want to be a devil's advocate on the other side of it, it's like we've talked about guys who've recovered this year and he is doing better, but like he's still, for a guy in AAA, the numbers on the whole are underwhelming. So I can even understand from that point of view where it started out really rough for him and he started to turn it around, but he hasn't had a big year, especially again in a park that is set up for
big success.
For big success.
Right. This would be great if George Valera was healthy at all this year.
Or if Mike Caprice had just followed up his AA year with more of the same.
I'm not surprised he didn't though. Like it's gonna be
Or if Angel Martinez had, or if Jose Tena had broken. Like the problem is the entire minor league. You and I were discussing this for segment 3. Like, what do our top 15s look like right now? And this system is like not only did we have so much regression at the major league level, it's like it's like there was a magic that wore off from complex leagues all the way up to the roster.
Yeah. So let's stick with Williams though. The conversation we were going to have yesterday was kind of based around, how many pitches does Williams really have to work with? And I think it's a 60 fastball. It's a plus fastball, right?
I think it's a chance for 70 grade with that eventually. That extension is going to make it.
Yeah, the extension, the velocity. We read 2 weeks ago about how he made a tweak because his fastball was kind of falling to like the 91, 94 range, and he was getting up to 97. Now he is more like 94, 96, hitting 98 because of a little tweak he made that kind of helped him get that back. He was, mechanically something wasn't right, but he's good now. The extension's good, and the command was great of it tonight for the first time all year. We said the two things for Williams is he has to find a third pitch that he trusts, and he has to command his fastball. Well, tonight he did all that. And truthfully, he didn't really miss a lot of bats with his breaking stuff. Like, he had 3 swings and misses with the slider, which is probably his second best pitch, right? And he had 2 swings and misses with the curveball. So not elite. He threw both of those for 6 called strikes all night. So it's not like he was, flipping them in there for a ton of called strikes over and over. It was fastball heavy. And that's the one thing we were going to talk about is it's a 58% pitch mix here on his fastball. Some guys can get away with that, right? There are very few. Garrett Cole only took an elite step because of his curveball, and he worked on a changeup too. And then, you and I discussed last night that Spencer Strider is like your hopeful outcome for Gavin Williams because he's kind of a 2-pitch guy, but he has great command, and Gavin Williams doesn't. Tonight he does. So tonight you see that's in there. But I guess the question is, what's the upside? Because if you have a night where you don't command your fastball, does he have a second breaking pitch he can go to? Doesn't have a third pitch, but I mean, this is what you see tonight. The potential is in there, and I think that makes him a number 2 starter on a really good rotation, number 3.
I mean, right now, the thing I'll say is like the best thing about him is he's like you've talked about. He's kind of a 2-pitch guy, but because of that extension and his velocity, guys don't pick it up. He does not get hit hard at all. You were joking. Maybe this shows he has the ability to unlock more command. And I'm like, remember Fausto Carmona showed us for a year that he could command, and then it went away. Well,
that was a painful memory. Thank you.
Sorry.
After tonight, yeah.
I have many memories of Fausto, aka Roberto Hernandez, but
I do too.
He in the case of Gavin Williams, I do think he has the chance to control better. I do think you're going to keep working on those pitches. Hopefully it's going to be a Shane Bieber situation where he's adding pitches every year. And I still think there is a chance for a 2. I almost never say anyone has a chance at being a pure 1. That's just me. Like the guys who are 1s are very rare. I wouldn't even put a 1 on Bybee right now just because that's how I rate guys. I anyone is at that point where I'm like, I think that they're a pure one. Like Espino was the guy who had a 1 ceiling to me. Like that's the guy. But I think Bybee is on the cusp of that. And when I rated him, and Williams is like in the 2 close to that. So I mean, I think Bybee Williams could be in the future spectacular. You add in McKenzie, you add in Logan Allen, you add in Joey Cantillo, who we didn't get a chance to talk about as much. Maybe we'll talk about the Cantillo comparison, move that to segment 3. We should probably take our first break here because I know Cantillo will be in our top 10s that we are going to maybe discuss a little bit about.
Be right back.
Sorry, everyone. We just had a complete dropout there. Let me bring up the jingle. And that first sponsor for today are the good people over at BetterHelp. I've talked about it. I'm going through a thing recently. I laugh because when I'm going through a thing, that's how I handle it. And talking about loss, talking about negative feelings is a very important way to work through those. And if the people around you are having that same issue, if they're going through the same loss, sometimes as nice as it is to talk about the positives, you don't want to necessarily focus on the negatives or risk bringing everyone, each other down. So it's nice to have that person to talk to, that therapist who can be a sounding board, help give you ideas to work through things, even be that person to just say, simple things to help get you through it. Someone who is not connected to the everyday for you. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's online, convenient, flexible, suit your schedule. Fill out a questionnaire, you match with a licensed therapist. If they don't work for you, you switch, no charge. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB.
Blue Jays Guardians doing it again on Tuesday. That will be Tanner Bybee and Yusei Kikuchi. If you can't make it to the ballpark, listen to all the hometown action on your SiriusXM app. Just search Guardians. We can talk about the Cantillo thing towards the end too, and we can mention one more thing on Gavin Williams at the end. Let's talk about
the
Ramon
game.
Well,
the game.
I mean,
do you want to talk about anything else?
The game. You know what? I know this is a frustrating loss because Williams pitched so well. They had chances. And there were some good things in this game. Bo Naylor had a hit
double play was super weird. Can we just say that? That is a weird.
Super weird. But Bo Naylor had a great throw to second base to cut down a runner. He had a single against a lefty late in the game. That was exciting to see. Brian Rocchio 2 for 4. And he made a great play, 2 great plays. He made a great play at shortstop on a grounder and then a pop-up into left field. He made a great play on. I will point out that he did get that strike called against him for a violation of the pitch clock. That I don't want to point. I don't want to. It was, but I also want to point out that he's been in the minors all this time, and they've been doing this. You have to, in that situation, you have to know these are rules that you've been playing with for a couple of years. I don't want to. It's a rookie mistake, but the problem is it shouldn't be because he's been playing with these rules for a couple of years. But there were good signs in terms of that. I know we're I said, we're looking for silver linings. Rocchio's at bats were good, and Williams pitched great. Naylor did a couple good things. That's cool. At this point, I'm sorry. The Twins won. We should be rooting for the Guardians to lose. I'm not saying it's fun. I'm not saying I want them to lose either. I'm just saying you're 5.5 out. This team is really, you don't have your second best hitter because he's out for 3 or 6 weeks. Who knows what looks like when he comes back, if he even comes back, and you don't even know what's going to happen with Bieber and McKenzie at all. At this point,
had really bad health luck. That's the story. You can go back. Last year, I said that they would be better than expected because their health luck had been so terrible in 21. It was too good last year, and then this year it's been too awful again, and that's the killer.
So really, if they lose, you want to see development from the kids and do some good things. At
that's
this point.
The important thing.
But I'm sorry. I mean, I know the MLB draft is the weirdest of them all, and there's the lottery now and all that, but you look for development kids, and I'm sorry, the losses this next year might be another good draft class. I'm just saying
it will be. It's good, and I guess here we'll say I think we've already spent enough time. We should just flip. We'll do Laureano in segment 3. We're already here talking about it, so let's just talk about the draft. Cleveland right now at pick 10th. Why is that important? The Mets are still over the luxury tax, so their pick's going to fall 10 spots.
Well, they would pick higher than 10th.
They'd pick higher than the Mets,
because the Mets and the Nationals fall out.
Well,
that's
what I'm explaining. Is that the Mets technically, while Cleveland is technically 10th ranked, the Mets are going to fall back 10 spots because they're over the luxury tax. They lose 10 spots.
And
the Nationals are a large market team. Anyone who doesn't get a comp pick counts as a large market team. So since they are a large market team, they can't pick in the top 9 2 years in a row. They can't be in the lottery. So they automatically drop back and will start at 10 for them. So that means Cleveland 8th. And, just if you're, we've talked about Nick Kurtz, the home run hitter out of Wake Forest, Jack Caglione, who led baseball in home runs a year ago. Now, is it Connor Griffith? I think the prep guy. I'm like having a brain fart moment. It's a really good hitter class at the top.
Derek
Chase Burns.
Bender.
Yeah. Of course, they would probably take JJ Westcott, the up the middle hit tool. But I mean, let me put that JJ Westcott would have been a top 3 guy in last year's draft based on what we saw this year. And that's, again, I really like this year's class. Well, maybe not top 3, maybe 4th. That top 3 was really good this year. I really love Dylan Cruz. Paul Skeens is filthy. There's maybe not anyone quite that high of tier, but that next group of is great right now on paper. We'll see what happens. Obviously, things never stay that way. But if they're picking 8th, you're gonna get an impact player. I mean, I've seen things where Caglione is sitting there at 8. I've seen things where Nick Kurtz is at 8. There are
wish it into existence, Jeff. Come on, get on board.
Baseman in the top 10. Let's just be honest about that. This organization, the last time they took a first baseman high is Bo Mills. That worked so well.
Lewis and Clark State. Come on, Lewis and Clark State. Wake Forest is not Lewis and Clark State.
I mean, back then it was. I mean, I'll say it again. The second most productive hitter in Wake Forest history is Stuart Fairchild. Currently, I believe, without a major league spot. So
that's great.
The one thing you want to look at again, I haven't really dug deep on the Cape performers yet. That'll be something, but it is a good draft class. So but the interesting thing will be saying all of this to set up that it's going to be really fascinating, not for 2024, but hopefully Cleveland is good next year and isn't picking high. But 2025, the Tigers can't pick high again. The Royals can't pick high again. All those teams, all of a sudden it's going to be like a team like Cleveland. Let's say they in 2024, I know this is so far in the future, it's ridiculous, but they could finish just out of the playoffs and still have a top 10 pick because so many teams won't be allowed to pick up there and won't be allowed to be part of the lottery. Because if you look at recent baseball, I mean, you look at the last 10 years, the Reds, the Royals, the Tigers, these teams have been top 10 every single year. A few exceptions.
How's that working out for the Royals, by the way? How's that working out?
Well, you have to be good at development. You have to not do terrible draft picks. The Royals do really. I mean, they're bad at it. But
the Reds are not, except they also got Ellie De La Cruz, who's not a draft pick. But yeah.
Yeah, no, the Reds. Look at that team. That is.
You eventually got to find one of those guys.
It's trades though. It's trades like Fraley, Steer, Encarnacion, Strand. Like Ellie De La Cruz was international, but they did not. A lot of those guys.
Nowhere, to be fair.
In fairness, though, Matt McClain was a pick. They've done a lot better in the last 2 to 3 years when those were later picks too. So we'll see. But yeah, it stands to watch the draft stuff this year because who knows what's going to happen. You can sit there and look at the odds of what's going to happen. Cleveland is currently 1 spot behind the Mets, and Washington would have the 6th pick. Oakland, Kansas City, Colorado, Chicago, St. Louis, Detroit. And again, this is part of the reason why I don't have much, I was part of this team should sell is because, Kansas City has 2nd pick, Chicago, the 4th pick, Detroit, the 7th pick. They've played a lot of games against those teams and did not play well this year. They have played the bottom of the barrel.
There you go.
And not taken advantage of those.
Yeah. Real quickly, one more count. While we're close to it, let's talk about the prospect thing for a second. Or do you want to just come back to that and then get to the Laureano thing at the end?
We should take break right here and then come back, do prospects, do Laureano. why this is a much better situation than Cole Calhoun.
Stick around. The Guardians are trying to find the championship pieces to fit the perfect fit for a championship team. And it's the same when it comes to your vehicle, because every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need will fit right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in pro sports, confidence is the name of the game. If you're going to develop a good farm system or put together your car, when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, the Guardians don't have that many parts to choose from, thankfully. You'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed and you're not just drafting blindly like the Royals. Get the parts right, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. And you can listen to the Guardians and the Blue Jays. I almost said Royals. Blue Jays do it again on Tuesday on your Sirius XM app. Listen to Tanner Bybee and see if he'll follow up Gavin Williams' great start with one of his own. Just search Guardians on your XM.
I do want to piggyback that. One of the things we forgot to mention in the first part talking about this is the Blue Jays use like their entire pen today. And on top of that, they've had like a lot of pen injuries. So in terms of, if you're rooting for this team to be successful still, I don't know. I feel like I'm still not willing to quite punt fully yet and just go all in on, like, when they lose. I listen, I'm getting enjoyment either way, but with their bullpen being beat up, it sets Cleveland up for an advantageous situation, but then that requires hitting, and we've seen this lineup.
That requires hitting the ball, Jeff. So Gavin Williams, I want you to make your Joey Cantillo comparison, because the one thing we looked at yesterday was not only Williams hasn't really missed a ton of bats until tonight. Like, his strikeout rate has been pretty meager for a guy with his talent level, but he avoids a lot of hard contact. If you look at his Savant page, the guy does not get hit hard. So for a guy with with a elite fastball and just 2 breaking pitches, no changeup, he stays off the barrel quite a bit. So that's another, positive sign for him and somebody else.
Yeah. So Joey Cantillo, for those who live under a rock and aren't familiar with him, is a 6'4", 225-pound lefty, has good extension as well. And for a guy who, when they got him, was throwing 89 to 90, he's hitting 98 now, I want to say, at points. He brings it hard. Yes, you can go look at his numbers, and I'm sure there are people who are going to be like, oh, his home run rate, oh, his ERA, his FIP. And it's like, yes, I get it. The numbers are not grand. But you look at what is killing him more than anything, it's that walk rate. If he could command his stuff, it is exceptional. It is just a hair below Williams, which actually might make it a hair better because he's a lefty, which, on top of, yes, lefties have an advantage against lefties. But I'm going to go back to when I was a fencer. The other advantage you have as a lefty is you don't see a lot of, so when you're a fencer, the rule was you hated facing a lefty, even if you're a lefty, because that's not what you get your reps against. You get most of your reps against righties. It's what you're more comfortable with. Like, in your muscle memory, it's mostly against righties. So a lefty has an advantage against everyone to some degree, which is why I think we see reverse platoon splits happen, because they have an advantage against everyone. For a hitter who should, right-handed bat, sometimes they don't hit lefties because it's not what they have seen. It's not what they're in their blood they've had as many reps against. As I say while staring at my USA fencing sticker from down here, my sword's right over there. I can just do that. That might be more entertaining than some of these baseball games of late. But the point is, Cantillo's stuff is excellent. Can he command it enough to be a fifth starter? And I don't want to hear hey, well, then put him in the pen. The problem is, if you can't command it, you're not going to command it as a starter or a reliever. That's not going to help him. He has the stuff to be a starter. He's going to live or die as a starter. I don't think, often we see guys move to the pen and their stuff plays up. That's not, if Cantillo's stuff plays up, fantastic. But that's the one question. It's like, can he command it better? A year ago, he had the lowest hard hit rate of any pitcher in baseball until he got hurt in the minor league, in the upper minors. This year it's higher, but again, he's playing in not a real baseball stadium. That place is not meant for hitter and or pitcher. I like going to games there. I like seeing it there, but that stadium is a albatross in terms of development for this franchise. That is a bad stadium for pitchers and hitters. Hitters develop bad traits because they're selling out for the power there, and pitchers develop bad traits trying to avoid the very small power lines. Like that, it would be the Guardians should just spend money and be like, here, we're going to reconstruct this little, because it's bad for their. I will stand by this. I think that stadium is bad for the Guardians' development.
It is the Huntington Small Park. As beautiful as it is, and a great job they do putting on games there, regardless of who's playing, and the best PA announcer in the sport.
It's fantastic. The PA people, everyone are fantastic. It's poorly designed.
Yeah, it's the ballpark. Let's not forget too, while we're on the topic of Joey Cantillo not being too different than Gavin Williams. Gavin Williams was a reliever in college for his first year. He had some injuries. The reps, he hasn't had a lot of reps, right? And he's, his first pro season was a year ago, which, by the way, the 12 strikeouts are at pro high now. He had 11 last year once. So that's his new pro high. Joey Cantillo missed all of 2020. He missed mostly all of 2021. He missed half of last year. So he's still a guy who's missing a ton of reps too. Yeah, he's still a guy missing a ton of reps. And you have to be encouraged by the fact that both Williams and Cantillo have been healthy all year, right?
Yes.
Williams healthy all last year and this year, and Cantillo healthy all this year. So you want to talk about a positive sign development for at least one prospect in this system, Cantillo's health and Williams too, because there were some injury concerns about Williams coming out of the draft as well.
And there were teams that had him off boards because they were concerned.
Yeah. So those are positive developments. I agree. I think there's some similarities there in a good way. Before we get to Ramon Laureano, do we have time to let's save it for tomorrow?
I think we got to save it.
All right. So a lot of draft picks have graduated, or not draft picks. A lot of prospects have graduated, obviously. Jeff and I were going to do at least our top 10. I have a top 15 right now.
I've just extended mine to 20. So,
okay. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm almost done with that. Ralphy Velazquez speaking of draft picks, made his debut in the Arizona Complex League, 1 for 2 as a DH tonight with a single and a steal. So that's exciting. Okay. Ramon Laureano. This is, I wanted Ramon Laureano like 3 years ago. Man.
I did too. Like I was back when he had more trade value than Sean Murphy. I was trying to concoct deals for both of them.
Yeah.
Back in after those first two, because it became very clear that Oakland was going to start selling around 2020. And I was trying to figure stuff out. I can get behind this. And I want to point out for everyone being like cheap ownership, like this cost them $1 million. Like they went out and spent, I mean, that's not a ton, but they did take some of that savings and turned around and made a gamble. And listen, he's got the worst weighted runs created plus of his career at an 82. Last year was a 96. With the way things have gone in this outfield, a 96 weighted runs created plus sounds fantastic. He would have, over the course of a full year, had 20 plus home runs, and he's right-handed. I didn't dive into his splits data. I'll do that now. There are reasons to like this. You have extra years of control. He is 29, and he turns he turned 29 in July. So you have him for his entire age 29 year if you keep him. Like he's going to make another 3.5 next year. I think at that low amount, it's worth holding on to and seeing what he can do. For his career against lefties, a 121 weighted runs created plus versus righties, a 105. Yes, those early years were the best, but he's got a rocket of an arm. He can play any of the outfield spots. He doesn't necessarily play them well, but he's got a good arm. He used to, he's got a good jump. It just, I don't know why his outs above average is lower, but he barrels the ball and his max exit velocity. And then let's just also talk, how much do you trust Oakland's development? Brent Rooker, we know the great story, but he's come back to earth. We know the great story on Ryan Noda. I believe he has started to regress a little as well. I could be wrong. Yeah, this is
any less or any more than Cleveland, though.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some things here, and I know everyone's going to be like, oh, steroids. I mean, if you were someone who's out there and like demanding 99, who we know use sticky substances, and then getting mad about a steroid use, then I don't know what to tell you. Like these are, there is cheating all over baseball in various forms, and you just have to. Yeah, it's not great. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of you got to be kind of universal in this.
here's my question on Laureano. I like the idea because it literally costs nothing but money. Like you are taking a shot on a guy who has some talent, who's probably had some talent in this league. He is still young and still has some club control left, and there are tools there. The only question I have is, I mean, there's nobody's really taking playing time away from. Like, I hope so. He's going to take David Fry's spot tomorrow, or as you're listening to this today. When David Fry comes back, hopefully he's coming back quickly. I hope that's the end of the Cole Calhoun experiment, because you don't need him and Cole Calhoun. You need. I know that you might say, like, who's going to play first base?
David Fry.
Yeah, when David Fry comes back, exactly. David Fry comes back. Although Cole Calhoun hasn't played first base in 10 years until Sunday, so.
Or
it should just be Arias, but
yeah, I was gonna say that. Let Rocchio play short and put Arias at first. Let's just
So is he taking at bats from Miles Straw, and you're putting Brennan in center and you're putting him in right? I guess that also takes at bats from Oscar, which I'm fine with. Like, people know how I feel about Oscar, to tell you the truth.
I mean, he had that 1 3-hit game. Has he had anything outside of that?
No, the approach has not generally been good.
He's pressing more than normal.
He's had some good at bats, but I would say it's worth at least the end of the year, going the next year. It's worth going into spring training to see if Ramon Laureano can be a fit on this team. Like, go the rest of the year, get him some at bats. You're not going anywhere. You're not blocking any serious guys. Like, Valera's not pushing you to call him up. Gonzalez is not pushing you to play him more. Even Brennan has had a disappointing season. If you want to, not play Brennan as much the rest of the year, I'm okay with that too. Because Laureano, if he plays well the rest of the year and he proves he can be on the roster next year, he at least can hit lefties. He can play all 3 outfield spots. He has defense. There's speed.
He's got some pop. Like, not great, but he's got 20 home run power. How many guys on this roster have legit 20 home run power?
He's got 20/20 potential in general. Like, he's got enough speed for that. So yeah, I'm okay with, like, just throwing him out there and seeing what happens. And if you strike, lightning in a bottle with him, great. If not, what's the worst that happened? You didn't give more past to Oscar Gonzalez. Big deal.
Could there be a chance for growth here? This is obviously a player who has maturity issues. We've seen some of that with, like, some of the injuries, some of the silliness with him. Steroids. Now, he is from the Dominican Republic, a Latin player. Like, think about
he went to college in the U.S. What do you mean?
He was born in Santo Domingo.
No, he went to college in the U.S. So.
I think he was one of those kids who didn't get drafted out of high school and then went to, because that northeastern Oklahoma college is funnily enough, Miami, Oklahoma, just to throw that out there.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay.
But he was born in the Dominican Republic. I wonder if, like, entering a situation, Oakland, who do they have that could be, like, a leadership figure, someone who is going to be that person who just talks blunt with the player? This could be a situation where, like, Tito is good for him. Tito, I mean, that's supposed to be what he does. Like, this is it. This could be Jose. Like, Jose also, I don't think takes much guff. Like, he will be someone who will let you know very bluntly if you're not doing enough. Like, this might be a good chance. We talked about Cleo Watson, a wake-up call. That's what this should be for Laureano, who is still only just 29 years of age, who was on track to, he was almost an all-star candidate for them in 2019. He looked like an emerging young player with his 860 OPS, 24 home runs. So we'll see. I think it's a good gamble because of youth. This is the opposite. He's 8 years younger than Calhoun. So let's just go ahead and let that settle in. Again, Cole Calhoun was a great player at peak, but that was almost a decade ago. So I think this makes more sense. And the promise, like you said, you want Valera to get reps. You don't want him on your bench up here. They don't have a lot of guys if they're not going to expend their 40-man. So it's a weird situation, but it is. I like this addition. It is a strong addition because they don't have too many other great options, and they. I think those teams ahead of them just didn't want to spend the $1 million to take the gamble. And Cleveland's like, hey, we can do that.
Does Tanner Bybee follow up
Gavin
Williams' great start with one of his own?
Because every Tanner Bybee starts feels like a great start of late.
That's true. I don't know if he'll strike out 12, but I think he's
striking out 16. I'm kidding. I'm not putting that on.
He's shutting the Blue Jays lineup down, and come back tomorrow. I think we'll have some time.
First no-hitter of my lifetime tomorrow. That's what's happening.
Oh, God. And mine. Yeah, it would be. Okay, let's do it. And we'll have our prospect rankings tomorrow, I guess, then.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Thank you all for listening, reading, and reviewing, downloading. It helps. Again, thank you all for your support right now with everything that's happened. I still appreciate all of the kind words that are coming through in the comments. thank you to our fantastic everydayers and listeners, and go Guardians, go.